pretty much sure that you may have recognized that most of our students spend their time watching movies and series. So, and this gave me the idea just to see what these can be used for in language teaching. So the rationale for my research was to show how far films can promote intercultural sensitivities and empathetic responses among university students. And I'm sure that all of us have experienced that in most careers, like being an economist or engineer, this invaluable knowledge is a must for professionals. And therefore, I decided to use films, and through the power of truth in 10 selected films, different perceptions and tension are displayed between culturally familiar and strange. And another aim for this research was to see how foreign films can unsettle our cultural assumptions and challenge us to see uh, our own world in a different way. So series and films can speak to their audiences in many ways with images, language, music, and narrative. So in the literature, I have just looked what people did about this topic. And then, so Desser in his study 2012, he said that dealing with the importance of movies, and he argues that film has been a globalized medium even before the term globalization came into vogue. And if we talk about the globalization and the concurrent technological advances, how they have transformed film distribution worldwide, that has resulted in a vast increased access to films. A large number of films are made within or more within one or more cultural contexts, and they tell stories that are consumed primarily by the national group within that culture. An important pedagogic function for using films, and that is to reveal the given empirical knowledge, but to undo the uncomfortable zone of identification, show empathy with characters, communities, illuminate what unites viewers and characters, and yet urge the need for acknowledging and celebrating the difference. So just a few words about my background. So the teaching of intercultural communication in Hungarian higher education has become a standard course of study, given that Hungary's relation with the outside world has been continuously expanding, and therefore the intercultural communication course at Budapest University of Technology and Economies aimed at combining theory and practice in such a way that provides ample opportunity for students to think, to talk, and to argue. Having discussed the key concepts in the courses, then such as values, rituals, symbols, heroes, etc., and also the main methodological approaches of Hofstede and Trompenaar, then the assignment of the students was to analyze cultural representations in their favorite series or movies in a short essay. Now, due to the time constraint, I'm just going to show you a few of them. So, of course, the groups were very big, about in two groups, about I read minimum of 70 essays. So I have just picked 10 out of them. Now, the films selected by the students were as follows: Away, The 100-Foot Journey, Mind Your Language. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it in Japanese, but this is Chihaya. And then the Norwegian Scam, the film Not Without My Daughter, Cable Girls, A Jewel in the Palace, Black Mirror, which all of these can be somehow classified under the heading of cultural acceptance or non-acceptance. Now let me start with a way. So first, I just put you into the picture. If you haven't watched the movie, just a few words about it. And after that, the things that the students have written about their feelings towards that particular culture. So the central theme of quite a few films is how acceptance, how to accept other cultures and live together in peace. And one such example is Away, which is a newly released series about international space cooperation, in which a couple of different nationalities are sent on a 3-year mission to Mars. And it features an international crew, a Chinese chemist, a world-leading British botanist with no experience in space, a Russian cosmonaut, and then also an American one. So I may miss some of them, but these are the main ones that I remember now. And all these people eventually have one dream, to be the first on the moon. However, they have very different motivations and expectations. While completing their mission, the people on board keep struggling with themselves. They would like to preserve their cultural norms. At the same time, in order to survive, they need to get rid of their prejudices against each other. So one of the students has commented on a love affair of the Chinese cosmonaut Lu and Freddie in the film. And that has been condemned by Misha, the Russian cosmonaut who sacrificed his relationship with his family to his career. So I have underlined the main messages that the student has said. I think it is really the best way just to show certain situations whenever people come to realize that how far they are not trying to understand each other, and what if you see a bigger picture, and then probably that would make you stop judging the other people. And it was also interesting what she said at the end, that we only believe in things that meet our needs and justify our choices. So this comment shows very well how much influence and compassion a situational film can cause, and it makes the student understand the miracles of acceptance and tolerance. Another excellent example for cultural, or more specifically culinary differences, is the movie The 100-Foot Journey, in which the characteristic flavors of two completely different cultures, Indian and French, combined in a charming French town. So the initial rivalry between the restaurant owners, the Kadam family, and Madame Mallory, who is actually the owner of French Michelin star restaurant, creates unexpected twists for the better and the worse in the lives of both. The Cold War peaks on Bastille Day, when one of the Mallory chefs and two other people vandalize Kadam's restaurant by spraying words which translate to France is for the French. And so it was the French owner who asked them to remove this from the outside of the restaurant. So apart from this unpleasant event, the film makes us aware how unusual habits, for instance, respect for sacred animals, or the overuse of spices like chili, curry, curcuma, or a piece of music that sounds foreign to our ears, can make us feel uncomfortable. And this has been highlighted in the student essay, who himself did not understand how come that somebody becomes so much irritated by music, for instance. And also he commented on the use of herbs, by saying that now he understands that they are not only used for cooking, but that is used for therapeutic benefits. So that is like a healing herb. In addition to this, the writer elaborated on the multicoloredness of India, and it appears not only in in clothing, but in every aspect of life, let it be religion, politics, festivals, or celebrations. Cultural diversity appears in a British sitcom, Mind Your Language, which is not a very modern series, but still students love watching it. And that shows people from different countries, France, Germany, Greece, Spain, South Asia, with different social backgrounds, religions, languages in one classroom. And the only thing the characters have in common is their lack of knowledge of the English language, which leads to a lot of misunderstanding. And according to the students, although the series was made in the 70s, but can still be enjoyed to this day. And he also added that probably today this series wouldn't have been made due to political overcorrectness. And some people would say that it is a racist movie. So he was very happy that at least this was made, this was made in the 70s. As regards some of the language difficulties in the film, the students mentioned some of the most challenging language issues, for instance, understanding metaphors, large words, and punctuation, and mixing English with Spanish. And he himself admitted that he enjoyed watching people struggling with acquiring English because he himself has the same problem. Now, I have put here a Hungarian movie as well, which, the dilemma of this Oscar winning short film entitled Sing. In Hungarian, it is translated into Everybody. And the dilemma is who can sing and who cannot. And the story takes place in Budapest in 1991, where a perfectionist choir leader allows only the good singers to sing aloud and expects the less talented ones to imitate singing in the best interest of the choir. And it is a very important ethical issue in the film, that what is more important? Is it the recognition of a teacher's performance by demanding impeccable sound from kids and winning the choir competition, or accepting the fact that the choir doesn't win any awards, but all choir members are treated fairly on their merits? When it comes to life, that it's not only the main character, but some of the other choir members are discouraged from singing, then the kids join their forces against the teacher. And on the day of the competition, when the choir is supposed to start singing, all the children start imitate singing, which upsets the teacher, who leaves the stage, and then the children start singing. So this is the story. And it was very interesting what this girl has written in her essay about that situation. I cannot believe that such discrimination among singers can happen in a country where choral music has always played an increasingly important role. It is just a minor personal issue that when I went to primary school, then we had Japanese music teachers coming to our classes to study the solmization system, which was developed by Zoltán Kodály. So, in Hungary, music teaching is something that is very important. So I think Deák Kristóf, the director of the film, he found it very well what he needs to have a film on. And there are also quite a few other topics that can raise cultural awareness. For instance, the student who was writing about that, he said that he remembers his own childhood experiences at school and recalls how inspiring or destructive a teacher could be. And the film is about true friendship and togetherness, and how people can come together to achieve a goal which is important for the community. Now, the next series, that is Chihaya, if I pronounce it well. So an avid fan of countries, Asian countries and cultures, this student was extremely enthusiastic about the task because he had watched a lot of Japanese animated series and he knew them pretty well. According to him, Japanese animated series often include fantasy elements and they portray situations and characters from other imaginary countries. Apart from the informal language use, greetings, politeness, bathing habits, bento culture, festivals, giving traditions are all depicted in the series. And then, of course, made a kind of comparison in between Japanese and Hungarian culture as regards uniform and then how they change indoor and outdoor shoes, especially in Hungary in the kindergarten. In the essay, the writer also commented on language use, making a comparison between Western and Eastern way of complimenting. People in the West would compliment others saying by how pretty someone looks. The Japanese use the word cute to compliment just about anything. I'm not sure whether it's true, but it was him who wrote it, so you may just comment on it later. Now, the Norwegian series entitled Scam, which means shame, and it has got quite a few remakes. It's a teen drama web series about the daily struggles of high schoolers. And the original version focused on different protagonists each season and resolves around a different theme. The third season focuses on the relationship difficulties and identity search, loneliness. The second season is about eating disorders, sexual harassment, feminism. And the third season deals with homosexuality, the coming out phenomenon, mental disorders, and religiosity. And the fourth concluding season focuses on Islamic religion. So what the student has written that, I mean, these short little films help me become more acceptable to human beings. And then he found the third season the most interesting and thought-provoking, where this homosexuality has come to the forefront. Actually, nowadays in Hungary, and I'm sure that in many other countries, so this has become really a hot issue. So, and the German version of Scam, as I have said, it has been remade in different cultures. And then in the German version, which was the second online remake, the student made quite a few culture comparisons in between German and Hungarian graduation traditions. For instance, there is one in Hungary which is called bolond ballagás. If you translate it, then that is like a stupid saying goodbye to school. And when they dress up in silly costumes and walk around in every classroom. And Abibali, which is the German one, it's not similar to one of our Hungarian graduation ceremony ball, which is called Szalagavatou, when people get a small little ribbon on their to wear on their coats. But so anyway, it just makes him to think about what are the major characteristics that are important to remember. Now, the film Without My Daughter, it raises racial equity, and interestingly enough, the student who was writing about this said that he didn't watch a series, so therefore he remembered this film watching a long time ago, so therefore he was writing about this. And the first and most important cultural element the writer has pointed out was the discrimination of the Iranian Moody at his workplace, and also was writing about the Iranian dress code. And the issue of interracial marriages has been dealt with in the essay, its pros and cons. For instance, it can reduce intergroup prejudice, discrimination, and multiracial couples sometimes are perceived or their children are perceived more attractive than their monoracial peers. So the next movie I'm talking about, it focuses on female values, and a student majoring in Spanish has chosen Cable Girls, a Spanish web television series set in the late 1920s in Madrid, where a telecommunication company starts operating. And the series tells us the life stories of 4 young women who have different motives to join the company. For instance, completing a mission, forming close relationship or friendship, helping provide for the family, or escape a controlling father. So these women are brave, selfless, proud, who fight for equal rights and freedom for human beings. At the time, women were, at the time when the film was made, women were not allowed to work in Spain. They could only be independent and strong in the kitchen. So today's generation can only learn about the world 100 years ago through movies, and the youth are quite interested in it. So this student has written that he got a lot of inspiration from, because that was a lady, she got a lot of inspiration from the 4 women, how they cope with their personal and professional lives. And even though, as she said, the situation is different, they can show us how women can survive in a male-dominated society. This series perfectly reflects the atmosphere and strict rules of the age. In Spain, social and industrial development began with great difficulty. Moving on to a film, which is Jewel in the Palace. It is a very interesting story related to the previous one. It depicts the perseverance of a woman in the Korean culture, and it was analyzed by a student who had watched this many times in his childhood. It tells the tale of an orphaned kitchen cook who went on to become the king's female physician at a time when women had little influence on society. Then the young apprentice cook is eager to learn the secrets of Korean cooking, medicine, to cure the king of his various ailments. It is based on a true story of the first female royal physician of Joseon dynasty. The students claim that the interest in Asian culture has greatly increased among the Europeans in recent decades, which is also true for her. And then it's interesting what she said, that interest has become because of Korean cuisine. And also in the film, you can see folk costumes, royal food, and buildings, traditional healing methods. She also mentioned the shortcomings of the Korean hierarchical society. For instance, although the emperor is holy and above all, he often has his hands tied because of the counselors, and this makes him feel weak. In addition to this, corruption and beating each other is also characteristic for the Choi family, where at the cost of fraud, everything is possible. So in conclusion, I would say that films can really work as an instrument for intercultural communication and can serve different purposes. First, it can represent national, ethnic, and cultural characteristics of other cultures, and it can raise awareness of discourse patterns and encourage audience complacency about their own cultural sensitivity, and can show exclusionary practices, and finally, to recognize the ethical responsibility. Thank you for your attention. That was all.
So we have 5 minutes for Q&A. If any of you have any questions for Zsuzsanna.
I have a question.
Okay.
Um, Zsuzsanna, thank you for the very interesting presentation. I also teach a course in intercultural communication, and I use um, 5 films. But the one thing that I think was interesting was that I first taught all students to be ethnographers, and they were viewing the films as if they were inside the culture of the films, and then they would have to come to conclusions about, oh, they could not do any research. They only could report on what they heard, what they saw, and then if what they heard and what they saw matched or not. And then I thought I am totally in agreement with you in the idea that intercultural communication can be taught effectively through films. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But that's a good way to continue the research. I love this aspect very much.
Uh, if nobody else has a question, the Korean movie that was it the Korean movie that you just talked about at the end, I found it very interesting that the DVD is Japanese.
Hmm. I'm sorry about this. Yeah, probably I wasn't very careful about selecting it.
No, no, no. I thought just very interesting because it's a Japanese version of a Korean movie being shown in an intercultural communication class. It matched very, very well.
I wish I could speak both languages, then I wouldn't have made that
But
mistake.
Korean movies and Korean TV dramas are incredibly popular in Japan. So
Yes.
yeah.
Charles, did you have something to say?
No, nothing in particular, except that I thought it was a wonderful presentation, and I agree with what David said that I think movies are tremendous ways of helping students to understand or at least get a feel for what the cultural differences are, and I think they can be very powerful when the activities are done well. I mean, I find that's the challenge. Challenge number one is finding great films,
Yes.
but once you've found the great film, it's the challenge becomes how to mine the film. What are the most interesting, richest parts, and how can you draw your students attention to that. And I love David's idea about making them ethnographers, but there's a variety of techniques, and I think that's something really worth discussing. I use films in teacher training. I think Vivian brought up Dead Poets Society and Freedom Writers. Those are two of the movies that I use in my first teacher training course, and I've taught them many times, and I know very well how to really mine those films and get the students, moving them to tears and moving them to the point where they're filled with motivation to become excellent teachers, because I kind of know what I want them to get out of those films. And I think that's, but when that's for teacher training. This is for cross-cultural communications, intercultural communications. And I think, probably the techniques that we use are varied and different. And I really, for one, I would love to hear more about the techniques that draw students' attention to the points that you feel are most important.
I'd like to ask a question, if that's okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, great. I was reading your students' responses to some of those films. Man, I wish my Japanese students could write such clear, well-produced sentences. Um, and they were
but I mean, they could do it at home, and they watch the films at home, and they were given ample time. So, I mean, sometimes, of course, I asked them to rewrite it or just to revise it. So it wasn't like the first draft.
Okay, so it wasn't a first draft, so that's
Oh,
comforting. Okay, um, I really like their insights. I wish I had the liberty to teach film or to do what you were doing. but some of their insights, you know, I think it was one about the French family in India and herbs and spices and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, it makes me want to watch that film almost.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got 2 or 3 of your list that I'm going to go and watch right away.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful choices.
Sorry, just one thing. Zsuzsanna, thank you so much. You were implementing, teaching, learning autonomy and emotional validation through your methodology. Fantastic.
Yep.
I'm going to definitely borrow your idea. That was my idea, how students can work better by themselves. And for example, if they wouldn't like the teacher, that would be the case, that they can produce knowledge by themselves. And the way you explained, beautiful. I'm going to stay with this.
Laura, good teachers steal from other good teachers. It's what good teachers do.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I think we are open to share because we know it works, and we are encouraging others to do the same. So I love that we are open to share ideas and that we're not selfish. That's very important, so that we can all develop. We don't care only for our own students, but we care for all the students. So I appreciate all the wonderful ideas I learned from everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys very much. If you can temporarily unmute and give a round of applause to our presenter, Zsuzsanna. Our next session will be starting in roughly 9 minutes, so you guys have a small break until then. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you.